Yo guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. Today I'm sitting down with Andreas Kessler, the director of Nakam, which in English means revenge. It is a fantastic short film about just that. And I'm excited to sit down with Andreas today and talk about his short film. How are we doing today?
Thanks, I'm great. Thanks for having me for the interview.
Of course, of course. And so how did you get into film in the first place?
Yeah, I was actually like always interested into visual arts and stuff, and then I started like discovering like film camera when I was 14 or something, and
Okay.
started making like small stop motion films, and then continued with like family members making films and
Yeah.
always kept on doing that. And then at some point I tried to tell more personal stories, and that kind of got me even more into it, and that was very, very interesting. And then yeah, I applied for film school. Now I finished film school with that film, and yeah, that's more or less like the way I went.
Very, very cool. And then so this is based on a true story, if I'm
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So how did you decide you wanted to adapt this into a film?
I read like in the newspaper like 8 years or something ago that those violins were discovered that kind of survived the Holocaust, and each
Okay.
of those violins had like a own story attached, and one of those stories was the story from Motele Schlein, and I was very drawn into it and thought like I have to kind of make something about that. But then I was thinking about like how could I make a film that's kind of telling something more than like the usual kind of revenge story. And
Yeah.
Yeah, this idea came up, what if you have to like sacrifice your only friend in order to take revenge, what you actually want to do? And that was like a conflict when we started
Yeah.
jumping into the story and making it even bigger, and then like telling the story in a film.
Yeah. And then I was curious because I mean, like you said, you're sacrificing your only friend, or you're contemplating sacrificing your only friends for revenge. And it's revenge that I think many would agree needs to happen, or is they deserve to have this revenge. How do you make sure that you're not going too far in one direction and you're allowing these characters that are dead set on revenge, that are sort of dragging these other individuals into this charade? How do you make sure that they still look good on screen? I mean, how are they still the protagonists in a film where there's the potential to kill someone?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that was one of the central questions that you're asking that I also asked myself, because I knew I wanted to, if I would tell this story, I wanted to tell it first of all out of like the boy's perspective, because I was really interested into the psychological process he had to go through. And also like I wanted to tell a story about like discovering like a place that you get to know, and then eventually you have to destroy it. And revenge should always, in my eyes, tell something about the fact that you're destroying something in yourself as well. Because on the one hand, it's totally understandable to me, especially after making these films, like why people have such a rage in themselves and want to like kind of do something about it. But then on the other hand, I was really, I was thinking like always, it never changes the world completely. It won't make the dead come to life again and stuff. And that's the horrible kind of truth about it. The dilemma in my eyes. So the main thing I wanted to really convey with this story is that the boy, when he eventually has the opportunity to make it happen to the like attack, he wouldn't do that in a moment where he would be certain about the fact that his friend is still in the building. He would do it when he thinks he saved him, and that's like the tragedy about it. And that I think helps a lot to totally be with those characters on the one hand, and at the same time, of course, understand the conflict that they are in. Because we always have to remember, like the biggest problem of all is the fact that, like back then, Germany was opposing this horror about on Ukraine and all over the world, and that's the actual reason why everything becomes like a huge conflicted area, and we should never forget about that.
For sure, for sure. And then, so again, you're talking about destroying a part of yourself when you're exacting this revenge, and I think part of that is, so obviously it's the place in which he's playing music, and it's become very much a part of him. But the music plays such an important part in helping to humanize these characters that that you sometimes look at, or that you could look at and say they just want revenge. They've lost that human aspect, and I think the music grounds them very much. What was the point beyond that, of making sure to incorporate music in such a pivotal way?
Actually, that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to tell this exact story and not one of the other violins, because I myself know this whole music stuff a lot, like very well, because I also played the violin, and
very cool.
I had those like relationships, because then I felt like, okay, the thing I'm 100% sure about that I can tell in this whole conflict and everything is like how they would get together through the music, basically, and how they would bond, and that kind of thing when you play with somebody who can help you, who's a little bit better than you, and you're kind of like dependent on him, but then on the other hand, you also want to show him you're a really good player and violin player, and so that kind of creates something that you can't push away. Although I think the boy comes into that restaurant and he actually doesn't want to have any like personal attachments, because he's very much under a lot of stress there. But that guy on the piano, he kind of builds up like a little bit of friendship that he like suddenly discovers didn't have a friendship for a very long time. And that's like what we try to show a little bit in the film.
It's a very good juxtaposition, that the beauty in that music and the stressful scenarios that everyone in the film faces throughout. So I think that was a great decision to have that music play throughout and be such an important role in that film. And then, so what is it like bringing someone else's story to life, bringing it to screen, making sure that you're doing them justice? What's that process like?
It's very tough, I have to say, because you really don't want to like do something that people wouldn't like, or like that seems not very accurate and everything. So we spent so much time like researching about that region, about like we collected like, or like how do you say, we asked so many people to join the team, basically. For example, the assistant director Marina Gerba, she came into the crew, and then she told us about her Ukrainian roots, and that her parents and ancestors were partisans in the same region as the boy and stuff. So we try to really talk also about with a lot of Jewish people, with Ukrainian people, with like all the topics that are kind of consistent in that film, and that helped a lot to understand the story more, to really have everybody included into this narration. And of course, I mean, it's still like narrative and not documentary, so there are always like fictional aspects about it, but we really try to do also like the whole casting and stuff very, as much as we could, accurate as possible. Like, also so many aspects involved, the playing, the language and everything.
So like you said, it's been a few years. It's been some time since you read the story that sort of inspired you to bring this to film. Now, given, I mean, the current climate of Ukraine and things going on right now, what was it important to release it parallel to those events, or was it sort of like a not happy coincidence, but a coincidence that you're able to tell the story of revenge when things are like this are going on in Ukraine?
That was basically more or less like a coincidence that unfortunately in a way happened, because it's like tragic that Ukraine is drawn into a war again, kind of like not even a century ago. But we started making the film years before, basically, and we finished shooting before the war started and everything. And now we were watching the news and shocked that suddenly, after being on a set where you have all sorts of crew members, all sorts of nationalities, suddenly there's some war going on that kind of divides people again. Hopefully not for our crew, but that of course like really happens quickly when something that horrible starts. And so we of course, the film was finished, we wanted to also publish it, and now we're also using it to talk about it. I mean, also like some of the actors, for example, the partisan is actually in Ukraine, can't leave the country because of the law of war, and so stuff like that is happening, which is really tough. And I think we can now use this film also to talk about the situation, to draw maybe like parallels between like the past and the present, and try to understand maybe something about that. But yeah, that initially it wasn't really planned or anything, but of course, like Ukraine was also always since 2014 when Crimea was enacted already like in a huge conflict zone. So yeah, that kind of went along. Yeah.
Now, was there at any point where you guys said now is not the right time to release this film? We should stick it in our back pocket and hold on for a little while?
It went like a normal kind of flow in a way, because or like it usually would go, because it was also like co-produced by a company, TV company, that also would have to publish it at some point, and so many like also of those factors were being part of it. But yeah, we were thinking of holding it back at some point when it didn't have a premiere yet also. And then when we realized, okay, it would have its premiere in Cleveland at the 46th Cleveland International Film Festival, we thought, okay, we actually have to put it out there. We have to see whether it helps to talk about it. We can definitely like make some awareness for the whole topic and everything through that.
Because I would imagine that, I mean, you can't predict that something like this is going to happen. Even if you imagine it's inevitable at some point, I think it's almost impossible to assume it's going to happen around the same time as you're producing a film that is similar in content. I imagine that has to throw a wrench in things, and that it makes it difficult to determine if it's the right time or not. And I think because it's obviously a very harrowing message, it's a very daunting message, but I think it's an important message that works very well given the circumstances of today.
Yeah, I mean, that was also like a little bit of a goal with this film and the story, because I think this message of a boy being drawn into a conflict, being like not able to have a childhood because he's raised during war times, and he has to do things that maybe adults should do and not even adults should do in a way. So that kind of, I think that unfortunately it's a very universal question and topic. I mean, this could happen basically, I believe, like everywhere in the world where there's war and conflict like that.
It's much more far-reaching than just one area. I mean, it reaches everyone that's ever experienced anything like this, and I think that's good. I mean, because you're obviously talking about a very specific time and a very specific event, but for it to be so far-reaching and to be so accessible to everybody is a huge feat, and it does that. So congrats to you guys for being able to accomplish that.
Thank you.
Of course. And then I'm curious, I mean, like you mentioned, you're about to, blow up a set or destroy a set. And what's it like, first of all, making sure that you're creating a set that is accurate, historically accurate, and people that are familiar with the area are saying, oh yeah, that makes sense, that looks real. And then how does that change going in knowing that you're about to destroy it at some point?
I mean, that's like, I would say, a natural process in filmmaking, that everything you build you have to put away at some point when the shooting is done. But yeah, I mean, also like the door that's kind of exploding, that was a fake door and stuff. So you kind of want to see whether the props kind of work that you were starting to do. But how we did that was like the whole research. We started doing that in Ukraine, and we had friends from the university who were there at that time before the shooting, and then they would travel around, take pictures, show like we did a lot of like visual research as well. And then we had a lot of team members who were speaking the language, who were, for example, Ukrainian, who would check on the details in the restaurant and everything in order to make it as plausible as possible. Because initially, of course, we were planning to make the film in Ukraine as well, where the boy kind of did that, but there was like one factor that was not easy to handle, because everything there was kind of renovated, so it didn't look any kind of like an old place anymore. And the other thing was that was the moment when the first COVID wave hit the world, and we had to make this film due to like deadlines and stuff. And then we decided, okay, we have to find places that look similar. And I started talking to a Ukrainian friend in Berlin, and he said, okay, check out Brandenburg. That's like close to Berlin, like the elder east of Germany kind of, and the former east of Germany. And then we watched like at places there, compared them to the Ukraine, for example, and always kept in touch with those people. And then also we were lucky to find a place that we could completely renovate and put everything in how we wanted it. So everything that you see in the restaurant is completely put in. There's nothing that already was there or something. Yeah. So we were kind of flexible. Yeah.
Very, very good. And then in terms of the casting, so I mean, you cast a phenomenal young actor. He conveys emotion very, very well throughout, but he's part of this huge story and this huge message. And how do you prepare someone that young to play such a daunting role in film?
That's a really good question. I mean, we started looking for young actors who could play the violin, speak the language, do the emotional stuff, understand what World War II was, because I didn't realize that some people, some kids at that age, they don't have that much like knowledge about it yet. It kind of starts there in school, sometimes earlier, sometimes at that time. So that was really essential to understand what this time was all about, and like what kind of danger would come from the Nazis and everything. So we cast like several boys. We also had like a violin professional boy who could like play the violin like some way better than I ever could play the violin, insanely well. And but he was like that would have been his first role ever. And then I thought, okay, this is like quite a tough role, so maybe we have to find someone who already has some experience. And then we found Anton, who I already knew from like a advertisement set, and he played like a small role there, and I really liked how he did that and how he could show emotion through his mimic and face. And also I watched him like talking to his mother, and saw a little bit of this very personal side. And then I just wrote to his agency, and then we had the casting, and at the casting he was like one of the boys coming, but he was the only boy who came all alone, like without anybody. Very self-responsible in Berlin, like a 3.5 million habitant city, and he came all alone. That was already like kind of interesting. And then and then he started acting, and he knew so much about the whole time, because he was talking to his grandpa all the time about World War II, and he knew a lot of this background that was really essential. And what he also had is this maturity to understand the conflict and to like act like an adult in a way. And that was very important to me, because I didn't want to show like a boy that's getting completely used or something. I wanted to show like a boy who like really does something out of also own kind of conviction, but in a way like really knows he has to take this decision. He wants to he has the power to do that, but he also has the power to not do it in a way.
Right.
And then yeah, we talked about that. He had a lot of knowledge, and he also had that like that power and anger and like grief, maybe you can say, I don't know, like
Yeah.
a lot of emotions. And yeah, then we started practicing the violin for like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, teacher for that. And yeah.
That's so many things that you need from one young actor. To be able to play the violin, to be able to act. That's incredible. And he did such a great job. So like, kudos to him to be able to command a screen like that. It's so good. And so where can everyone watch Nakam right now?
So right now it's selected to more film festivals. For example, it's going to play in Anchorage International Film Festival, then at the Jewish Film Festival in Miami, and right now it's in Wisconsin, Wayuega, I think it's like, I'm not sure whether I pronounce it correctly, but is there at the festival, and in the like Oscar screening room, actually.
Yeah.
You can watch it too, I hope.
Yeah, best of luck on that. Best of luck. And then, so what are you working on now? So
now I'm working on like that story also, like discovering more of the partisan world, and also like on like several longer kind of scripts and films. I dive into the music world again, and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm quite interested in all that kind of topics and everything.
Fantastic. And I have one final question for you. I'm curious, what are some of your favorite films?
Oh yeah, yeah, I have a lot of favorite films, I have to say. I mean, I really love, like, I love the Iñárritu films, like Babel and 21 Grams. I also love like French directors like Claude Chabrol and Louis Malle, and like there's like a film, like very interesting film from like the French, I think 70s, I'm not sure actually, but it's called The Butcher. It's like a crime story. It's very well told, and of course, like also like the how it's made. Like I love the David Fincher movies, and yeah, it's
very cool.
I really love it.
Yeah, it's impossible to pick one film, which is
why it's definitely impossible.
That's why I phrase it as, what are some of your favorite films? Because I don't think I would ever get an answer if I asked what's yours one favorite. So I always say the same thing. I always say Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, that's phenomenal too.
It's as good as it is as a film, and I love it for that. It's personal because I had a chance to watch it with my dad, who worked so much. He brought me to the midnight screenings when they re-released them in theaters, so that was really important to me. But I've watched so many indie films lately. I've been really into those. I've seen films like 8 Found Dead, which was a horror film that screened out in LA recently. One of my favorite films is One of the Good Ones, by Jesse McKinney. It's about a young man who was in rehab and kind of drops everything for this woman who he thinks he's going to spend forever with. And then I'm a big Marvel nerd. I'm going to see Black Panther 2 tonight, so I'm excited for that. Okay, I love all the Marvel films and television shows. It's impossible really to pick one. I always say Empire Strikes Back because it's very personal. But there's so many films that I love just as much as that. Totally. But Andreas, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit down with me and chat about your film. Again, it was a fantastic film. I encourage everyone to check it out at one of those film festivals that he just mentioned, Anchorage, Miami, etc. Again, best of luck in your future endeavors, and again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interview. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. You have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.